Amateur radio is a diverse hobby that has been around for well over a century. Today it has many different uses and many different facets, and as digital modes and the internet are constantly changing the face of amateur radio as we know it, it's easy to forget the origins of a hobby that has been around for over 100 years. By the 1920s, the concept of radio and wireless had been around for decades already, and societies were appearing across the country. Many publications emerged during this time, which were used to share news, information, and knowledge, and many of them alluded to the various societies and clubs that had been formed. This is the brief story of the very short-lived organisation that was known as the Altrincham Wireless Society. Very little is known about this small radio society, but in the short documentary, I'll piece together what we do know in an attempt to preserve the legacy of this gathering of like-minded experimenters that performed almost 100 years ago. The earliest known record of a radio society in Altrincham is 1922. Sale Altrincham District Radio Society was set up during this year by the Honourable Secretary Mr H. Fowler of Old Hall Road in Sale. Its headquarters were at the Reform Club just outside Altrincham in the nearby town of Sale. At the time, it was proposed to form a ladies section and also a junior section. However, the first mention of Altrincham Wireless Radio Society was in the Citizens Radio Call Book of 1923, where a call sign of 2QV was registered to the society under the name WN Lambert. The address of the society was Breeze Crest, a large lodge on Plaintree Road in Hale, a neighbouring town of Altrincham. The society was affiliated with the Wireless Society of London, which later became the RSGB. It's hard to imagine in this day and age what a wireless society would have been like back in the 1920s, in the early days of radio, long before the hobby as we know it today had even been conceived. Altrincham Wireless Society members were made up of people who experimented and tested with radio and built receivers and transmitters from scratch. The call sign 2QV or G2QV was registered as an experimental transmission station at Breeze Crest in early 1923, joining many others across the UK. On the property, which sits on a ridge of high ground that runs from Dunham Massey to Hale, were numerous wire antennas used for both transmit and receive signal reports to other stations both in the UK and abroad. A society member by the name of Vincent Percy of Ashfield Road, Altrincham, sat down on the evening of September the 1st, 1929 at 8:10 and worked G5 Juliet Oscar on the 41 metre band, CW only. G5LG, JF Johnson of Borough Road, Altrincham, and G2PC, A.G. Davies of Redcott, Park Road, Timperley, can also be linked to Altrincham Wireless Society. In 1924, at a well-attended meeting held on May the 1st, arrangements for the summer months were discussed. It was decided that the society was to hold meetings every alternate Thursday evening at its headquarters, the British Schools, Oxford Road in Altrincham, commencing at 5 p.m. It was also suggested that outdoor experiments could be carried out at weekends between the meetings. The members gave this last proposal their hearty approval, and those wanting to become members were to apply to the Honourable Secretary J.F. Johnson. This suggests that during 1924 the Wireless Society moved from Breeze Crest on Plaintree Road to its new headquarters in Altrincham. This decision may have resulted in 2QV parting ways with Altrincham Wireless Society. Many properties of this era around the same area were demolished during the early 20th century, but Breeze Crest still exists to this day, albeit under a different name. The new meeting place on Oxford Road is now the Little Theatre and has been since the 1960s. Popular magazine Shortwave Listener in January 1947 mentions a radio club in Altrincham with a contact name of J.G. Barnes, G3AOL of Victoria Road, Hale. G2QV isn't mentioned in connection with Altrincham after the 1920s at all, and all accounts suggest that Altrincham Wireless Society was defunct by the end of 1924. The last publication to mention any radio club in Altrincham was Shortwave Magazine in April of 1963. It isn't clear when this club disbanded, although it is likely to have continued in the 1970s and was almost definitely a separate club to Altrincham Wireless Society. By pure coincidence, North Cheshire Amateur Radio Club was registered at another property on Plaintree Road in Hale with a call sign G0BAA. This was unrelated to Altrincham Wireless Society and is now defunct. G2QV doesn't appear publicly until the end of the 1930s, with a claim to the first pre-war QSO in August of 1939 from Sussex. Reports of the station are also logged on 5 metres in 1948 and on 144 MHz in 1949. The last known mention of G2QV was in 1952, where he was licensed as ZS5QV in South Africa. The short life of Altrincham Wireless Society played quite an important role in early radio in the area by both being set up as an experimental transmission station and sparking the development of other radio clubs which lasted for many more years. We will revisit Altrincham in future episodes, but for now, that's all there is to know about the short story of Altrincham Wireless Society, a very important organisation which has become lost in time almost without trace.